Well, it's a somber report. It's 1:39 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's the 31st of May, 2023, Wednesday. Weaver, John C., Roseman, California. Hopefully without any missile strikes or anything else like that. Yeah, I'm trying not to make it sound facetious at this point over here, or comical, because I'm worried. Not just the internal affairs of the United States trying to break itself down, and democracy is still trying to right itself. If we want to look at it as a damn ship at this point over here, but I think it's got leaks like crazy. They still have to plug up. Just hope they got enough tar for the damn wood planks. We have an issue concerning about the foreign estate affairs of not exactly China, but Russia being more and more aggressive. Well, they were trying to be anyway, but now they're getting to be experiencing the taste of what was going on in Ukraine. There's been reports for the last several weeks of a few drone strikes hitting places left and right, including Moscow. Well, apparently, the Ukrainians are pissed off enough. It's assuming that they are the Ukrainians. That they are royally pissed off enough to launch strikes against Moscow to bring close the war to their doorstep. The Russians have been listening to the propagandists on the well, they've been listening to them anyway. And it's been scaring the living crap out of them. They don't know what the hell to make out of it. And quite honestly, I wouldn't know what to make out of the damn thing either. But it's there. It's there. Ukrainians are trying to make Russia feel the pain of Ukrainians as they're constantly fighting the war that they have in their country. So far, Russia is still like, why you putting a war in our place? Well, because you guys allowed the crap to happen in the first place, and now we got this going on. And of course, Russia's going, you can't do that to us. How dare you? Who the hell you think you are? Well, problem is, they know who the hell they think they are. And what they're trying to do at this point is to make certain that they know that Russia understands this. Because Russia is getting a taste of what Ukrainians have been going through the past year. The Russian state media is still telling people how unfair it is of what's going on. Well, I hate to tell these assholes, but guess what? It's going to get even worse. How about this one? I'm going to put this on the CNN right now.
to allow Ranking Member Raskin to participate in his call with Director Wray this afternoon, the ranking member secured a separate call this afternoon so that Director Wray can brief him on the information the FBI is providing in response to the committee's subpoena. So that, I think, gives you some insight into how well things are going between Republicans and Democrats on that committee.
Right. What exactly are they trying to investigate? What is the allegation, and would this prove it one way or the other?
I mean, the allegation is that when Joe Biden was vice president, he was involved in some sort of alleged criminal scheme where a foreign national essentially tries to pay him off. There is nothing to indicate that this is a verified rumor. The White House has dismissed it and called this all, a GOP charade that is designed to try to hurt Joe Biden's poll numbers. And even the FBI, as they're writing to this committee trying to lay out why they're so hesitant to hand this document over, says this is unsubstantiated information. A confidential source comes in, speaks to the FBI, they use this form to sort of memorialize that conversation, but this is information from one person. It doesn't tell you, did the FBI check this out? Did somebody else contradict them? Is this a person who, is a crazy person who came in from the street and decided they wanted to share this information from the FBI? So we really still won't have a sense, even when Congress gets to go view this information, even if they get a copy of the document, if there is any veracity to what they're talking about.
Yeah, I remember from the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, like any wacko can make any allegation and call it in to at the FBI or whatever. The question is, what's the case file show?
Right, exactly. And, if Comer is able to, he's going to get to see it, but if he's able to get a copy of it, the question is, so then where are you going to go with it? Are you going to actually try to speak to the FBI and substantiate whether it was investigated, whether they found anything? And if they say, look, we looked into this and we found nothing, are you going to share that with the American public?
Right. Before I get tweets, let me say I'm talking about all the unsubstantiated, wild, anonymous allegations against Kavanaugh. Just to be clear. Sarah Murray, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Strong evidence revealed at the trial for that mass shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue. A prayer book shredded by a bullet. Police body camera footage from that day. We're going to go live to the federal courthouse in Pittsburgh next.
I wanted to get a little bit of relevancy going on and the personal observations of how this is going to play out left and right. It's not exactly Comer having a conniption fit. It's happening up in Europe and how they're reacting to Ukraine going toe to toe with Russia. There had been talk about Ukraine going to do a massive counterstrike against Russia. Now, Russia had been doing this invasion for a year and a half, longer, because they took over Crimea and made it their territory. Ukraine wants back. But they also want Ukraine protected as well, and they are pleading to the world to give them everything they need to fight Russia, because by themselves they barely had it except just for their own manpower. But it's getting to a point where foreign nationals are going to be getting into this. There was reports that made press and made public, and I caught it on social on this one, that there are relief and humanitarian aids being set up by NGOs, but by former veterans of foreign wars for the United States jumping into the action. Just for humanitarian assistance. They're not going to fight the war, but Wagner was a private entity that Russia was using to go against the Ukrainians. And Ukrainians were basically kicking their ass left and right. And Wagner's forces were feeling like they weren't getting enough support from Russia. They were pulling back left and right on that. And because Ukraine has got armaments, they're feeling more emboldened to take on Russia. But here's the question. Are they going to be taking territory, or basically still giving Putin a bloody nose at this point from their territory? They just officially wanted to tell Russia, get the hell out. And it's going to be taking them decades for them to get their land rebuilt again because of all the damage that's been happening. Practically every city is getting torn apart left and right or decimated. And so are the people. I mean, you had immigrants coming to a lot of countries to try to make a new home. But hopefully, will they come back to Ukraine if Ukraine wins? Well, what happens if Ukraine doesn't win? And Russia gets the foothold again. Back in the 40s, after World War II, Russia was trying to get territory. And they managed to gain territory in different countries. Called it the Warsaw Bloc, or Warsaw Pact, actually. The Eastern Bloc. Ukraine was one of them. Belarus was another one. Crimea. A couple other countries. They were on the western edge of Russia. They were the extension of the Soviet Union when it was being built and created. And they needed a territory. Czechoslovakia was one of those countries. It was invaded by nearly 30 or 40 years. It was Soviet territory. Now you've got Czechoslovakia had its own identity, but then it's separated. Slovakia and the Republic of Czech. And they're trying to enjoy their own freedom and their own identity. Belarus was sympathetic to the Russian Empire. Very sympathetic to them, but they're not part of it. But if Ukraine falls, I think Belarus would be part of the Russian Empire because they'll join them. They still have a strong tie to the Russians. And that's horrifying. Poland was one of those countries. It was called the Warsaw Pact because Poland was one of them. The northern country. But they fought like hell for their own freedom as well. I mean, when the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia had no hold. Poland was gaining its foothold. Poland was going to be Polish again. They were going to have their own empire. Not their own empire, but their own country. Russia still had Siberia. They still maintained hold on Siberia. And it's still a large country. Most of the nuclear capabilities were in the other countries that they lost, but Russia still has the capabilities somewhere buried in its own entire in its own landmass. But they've been using up so much of their equipment for acquiring Ukraine and they're using up a lot of their soldiers and borrowing other soldiers to fight their war, while demonstrating propaganda to people that Russia was still winning a war or trying to get rid of Nazis. There were still Nazis in Ukraine, and it's our duty to go out there and get them. Well, they were just people enjoying democracy in their own country. You know, I had seen in my lifetime, in the early 1980s, about Soviet Union going after Czechoslovakia, going after Chechnya. Well, Chechnya was decades later after Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia. But I had seen how Russia tried to maintain a hold on other countries that it still wanted for its own empire. Georgia was territory from Russia, and they had gone through a lot of hell through Russia as I was giving it to them. And I remember seeing on the news reports that when Czechoslovakia got invaded, like, you gotta be shitting me. And they maintained it for decades until they couldn't anymore. Or worse, I'd seen they try to go for Afghanistan, trying to expand their borders. And they made it into their own damn Vietnam, as we had in Vietnam. There was still controversy during that time whether or not the Vietnam War was a righteous war or not. Was it legitimate? Was it not legitimate? Because I couldn't even tell from the information being handed over to me whether or not if we were actually supposed to be there or not. According to one particular professor who is still anti-war and pro-communist, he was going to be teaching his form of history to people. So it was based on lousy intel, a great deal on this one. I cannot understand why. I could not understand why we had to get into it, but we got into it anyway. We didn't want to follow communism. Right after World War II, and we saw how Russia was turning into communist. We saw how Chinese was already communist. We were seeing the tide of red coming. And we didn't want it going over to the United States at all. We even went after our own people, accusing them of being communists. McCarthy hearings. God, was that a joke? They went after our own people and after our own military, and the dumbass senator got his ass buried. Got his ass handed to him on that. So it was crazy enough anyway. I had seen how the Russians were trying to invade territories and trying to cover it up and trying to blame others for it. They wanted to tell him it's the other guy's fault, it's not our fault. Dumbass mothers. Russia never did like democracy. Never liked freedom, they liked control. They were so used to it. They had czars. They had Russian rulers and other counselors, and they had royalty running them like crazy, but they had revolution, and they wanted people to be in charge. So they made up their own royalty of sorts, their own Soviet Union. Couldn't vote these guys in. You just established these assholes in there, and they ran over everybody. As long as they had control of the military and the police, you were screwed. Still are. So seeing this in action doesn't surprise me about Russia. Going to be getting its ass kicked, but worse. It's the wider implications I'm looking at. It's not the rebuilding of Ukraine. I'm talking about global war at this point. That's what I'm fearing right now. There are things connected to each other. There are patterns left and right. They're going to be coming to a head. Our own internal politics going as it is, we're going to be part of this damn thing. If not now, we're still actually we are part of it right now as it is. We are telling ourselves that we're not, but we are. We're trying to tell each other that, this is going to pass and this is going to do this and this. I hate to say it, but we're screwed one way or another. I just don't know what we're going into these days. Pause it right now.